Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Mani Shresht, working as Assistant Professor at Haryana School of Business, GJ University of Science and Technology, Hisar. Today, we are going to discuss about the topic Designing Compensation. Before starting the discussion, let's have a look at the contents. The discussion will start with the introduction of the topic, followed by compensation planning, understanding of designing a compensation system, and summary. By the end of this module, students will be able to know about designing compensation, compensation planning, and compensation survey. Compensation designing means planning the minutest of details of the compensation system to be implemented with an organization. This designing of the compensation is very much organization specific, but the major processes and principles for its designing will remain the same. The organizational mission and vision are the very essence in its designing. The decision makers have to carefully consider the various decision options with complete awareness about the pros and cons of every available option. An effective architecture and design of compensation system should not only be simple and flexible, but should also be able to drive fresh talent as per business and market needs. A consistent methodology in designing will eliminate any guesswork at every level of compensation planning and will promote trust in the organization's processes and reward practices. Any compensation design that is logical, transparent, and financially responsible and supportive for the employees will surely serve all strategic business needs. Compensation can be considered as one of the most organizational rewards because it allows employees to obtain their rewards. Compensation management entails a mechanism that connects employees' efforts, performance, and outcomes with organizational goals and objectives. Compensation management is very important and difficult task since it involves many considerations for designing and implementing rewards for work and performance of employees. It should be designed in such a way that it helps to motivate employees so that they can improve their productivity, which further contributes to organizational effectiveness. Therefore, compensation management requires managerial decisions and proper planning. To ensure employee efficiency and organization cost control, organizations need to decide on certain issues. These issues can be broadly classified as level of compensation, structure of compensation, and system. Level of compensation is enough to attract and retain competent employees necessary to gain competitive advantages by the organization. Structure of compensation should be such that it assists an organization to achieve its strategic goals and objectives, and compensation system complies with government regulations. The level, structures, and system aspects of compensation management are discussed in the following section. Compensation level planning. A pay level is the average of several wages or salaries in the organization. The average may be based on individual pay rates for a single position or on pay averages for a number of positions. Compensation level represents an organization's average compensation relative to that of that competing organizations and is often known as leading, matching, or lagging the market. An organization which adopts leading the market policy offers higher than the average compensation of the relevant labor market, whereas an organization adopting matching policy offers compensation equal to relevant labor market average. Compensation level decision made by an organization has a direct impact on individual and group level consequences, performance of employees, skill development, work related attitudes, and workforce composition. Compensation level and benefit policy largely impacts what type of employees are attracted to the organization. These policies determine what type of employees will be willing to work for the organization for a longer period of time. Organizations which offer higher compensation experience improvement in both organizational and individual level efficiency because they can attract and retain best talent easily. Factors influencing compensation level planning. Various factors influencing compensation can be classified into two broad categories. First, internal factors. These are certain internal factors of composition level planning. These internal factors are within the control of the organization. These include job evaluation, that is a technique to determine the relative worth of a job to an organization. Organizational strategy, that includes growth, expansion, and maintenance plans which determine the types of jobs and quality of human resource required by the organization. Human capital, the nature and type of employees required by an organization directly affects compensation levels. HR policy of organization provides general guidelines on how human resources are managed and utilized for gaining competitive advantage. Cost implication involves the compensation should be within budgetary limits of the organization. Compensation offered to current employee is an important factor which affects compensation levels in general. Second part, the external factors. Every organization is affected by the environment in which it operates. While deciding compensation levels for different jobs, organizations need to consider current marketplace rates for same or similar jobs, external labor market situation, and compensation level offered by its competitors. The factors affecting external relatively of jobs are cost of living, that is the level of inflation in the economy that is having a direct impact on cost of living of people. Different microeconomic factors and macroeconomic factors influence the overall economic condition of a country, which then further affects the standard of living of people and the compensation levels in external labor market. Government regulations. In government of every country, there are certain rules and regulations to ensure sufficient and timely payment of wages to employees. Stakeholders include trade unions, shareholders, employees, etc. Individual value of contributions. Compensation level also depends upon the value of an individual contribution towards achieving goals of the organization. Employees who contribute more towards achieving organizational goals must be paid high level of compensation in order to keep them motivated and committed. Capacity of organization to pay. Compensation levels are decided by the top management and it reflects the firm's capacity to pay its employees. Compensation philosophy of an organization should be designed in such a way that an organization is able to attract, retain, and motivate talented and highly skilled workforce. While designing compensation structure, every organization must consider internal equity and external market pressures. Pay structure is the hierarchy of pay rates or levels among jobs in an organization. An organization compensation structure means the array of compensation rates within the organization, which represents its degree of slope in its compensation policies. Characteristics of a particular pay structure includes the number of levels of structure, the size of compensation differentials between each level in the structure, and the rate at which employees can progress through each level in the structure. Compensation level planning is done by the top level management of the organization. These policy decisions provide guidelines on maximum and minimum level of compensation while taking into consideration factors like capacity of organization to pay, legal policy, impact of trade unions, and compensation structure of competitors. The general relationship between compensation levels and marketplace rate. The organization has an option to pay above market rates, that is lead, at market rates, that is match, or below market rates, that is lag. Organizations which pay compensation above market rates are able to attract more skilled and talented employees, whereas organizations which pays below market rates have high risk of high labor turnover. The division of total compensation amount into fixed and variable pay. Fixed pay refers to that portion of total compensation which is paid for position, and variable pay refers to that portion of total compensation which is paid for performance. Compensation structures can be broadly characterized as egalitarian, which means a compressed compensation system, or as hierarchical, which means widely dispersed. According to equity theory, employees evaluate exchange relationships on the basis of comparisons of their perceived ratios of inputs and outputs to the perceived ratios of others' inputs and outputs. When employees perceive inequality, that is, they see themselves as working harder than but receiving less compensation than co-employees, they may respond with a host of potentially negative reactions in order to restore equality in the exchange relationships. As compensation structures become too hierarchical, organizational performance may be adversely affected because employees will become cooperative and less inclined towards teamwork. These negative consequences may be exacerbated if a hierarchical structure becomes a means of signaling organizational value, spawning feelings of social, psychological, and economic injustice among employees. While overly hierarchical compensation system should be associated with negative organizational outcomes, equity theory also suggests that overly egalitarian compensation structures are similarly detrimental. Greater level of knowledge, skills, and abilities should be associated with greater compensation, and therefore, compensation system that provide insufficient differences for human resources yield feelings of inequity on the part of employees with greater levels of knowledge, skills, and abilities. Designing compensation is the most difficult and crucial part of compensation structure decision making. The steps involved in designing a compensation structure are determination of worth of jobs to organization and determination of worth of jobs in the marketplace. After establishing a compensation philosophy which determines external compensation relatively based on job evaluation, relative worth of job is identified and compensation levels are fixed for each job based on the requirements of that job. A detailed compensation structure is set up in which remuneration is organized by detailing different grades and minimum and maximum compensation rates for each of those grades. The second step is the determination of compensation rates of competitors. While fixing the compensation levels in the organization, a lot of things need to be considered like compensation surveys, internet data, competitive benchmarking, labor market trends. The compensation survey is conducted using jobs which are similar across different organizations. They are called benchmark positions. For example, engineers, electrician, accountant, etc. The organization has to decide its compensation philosophy within the entire spectrum of compensation rates. Organizations who want to hire best talent would have to compensate levels found through the compensation surveys. Whereas, if the organization is interested in average people, then a more middle of the road compensation philosophy might be adopted. Compensation system planning. Pay system is the method the organization uses to determine pay raises for individuals, which can be computed in terms of amount of time the employee spends on the job or for his performance or efficiency. Performance-based systems include individuals and group incentive systems, commissions, cost reduction schemes, and profit sharing. Compensation is designed to achieve the following objectives: attracting and retaining the right people. The overall compensation levels should be such that right people can be hired at right place. Compensation for the jobs which requires diverse skills should be set differently so that people who possess those critical set of qualification can be hired and retained. Compensation should motivate more productive people to join and stay with the organization. Second objective is to motivate people to work efficiently. Working efficiently means doing the work in the best possible manner so that organizational goals can be achieved easily. And the last one is communication system. To describe the method for future compensation, the employees remain motivated and work continuously for achieving organizational goals. While meeting compensation objectives, organizations try to keep their personnel cost as low as possible. Designing a compensation system requires certain steps. Step 1 is determination of basis for making payments. There are different bases for making payment of compensation. It can be broadly classified into the bases as depicted: skill-based pay, merit-based pay, knowledge-based pay, competence-based pay, market-based pay. Compensation is made on the basis of skills and performance of employees. Skill-based payment system is generally adopted at lower level positions, whereas performance-based system is adopted for managerial and professional positions. Major bases of compensation payments which exist in majority of organizations are skill-based pay. A skill is the knowledge and ability needed to perform a job effectively. A single job may require multiple skills. Some of the basic skills which are required in majority of the jobs are reading, quantitative technique, manual dexterity, etc. The skills needed under skill-based pay are technical knowledge that includes depth, breadth and integration of knowledge, higher order thinking skills which include problem solving, organizational, self and project management and prediction skills, and interactive skills which covers listening, communication, team and leadership skills. Merit-based pay. Proper reward for productive work is one of the key motivator for efforts and achievement. Under merit-based pay system, employees are evaluated through performance appraisal and on the basis of their rating, appropriate hike is fixed in compensation. Knowledge-based pay. This is one of the most popular method adopted in new economy organizations and is used to make payment to blue-collar workers, workers working in organizations that are in IT or biotechnology sectors where work can be specified and defined properly. The main motive to adopt knowledge-based pay is to link compensation to depth if the skills and knowledge a person learns that are relevant to the work. Competency-based pay. A person described as competent in an occupation or profession is considered to have a repertoire of skills, knowledge and understanding which he or she can apply in a range of contexts and organizations. The competency required for such kind of pay are core competencies which are applied to any job within the organization, the technical skills and expertise needed to carry out job effectively, competencies which are related to a specific job category, and competencies which define the contribution of an employee to his role. Market-based pay. In the era of globalization and competition, organizations are restructuring jobs, retraining its employees, upgrading technology at a faster pace. Now, organization considers its employees as a competitive weapon. Therefore, compensation strategies and reward systems should respond to a changing organization efficiently by responding in a positive way to market dynamics. More and more organizations are adopting market-based pay systems in order to supplement their job evaluation program. Market also serves as an important measure of competitiveness of internal compensation level. External compensation is also considered good detriment of compensation due to following two reasons. Market pay system can be understood easily and are flexible enough to respond to changes that directly impact an organization and its industry. Organization and employees affiliate shorter as compared to past generation, and this has elevated the importance of internal equity over external competitiveness. The second factor is determination of methods making payments. The work itself is a good determinant of whether to pay for time or output. Work characteristics include measurability of output, the relationship between effort and output, degree of standardization, requirements for equality as well as equity, competitive conditions, which make it very important that unit labor cost be definitely known and fixed before production. Thus, payment method can be selected on the basis of work characteristics. Some of the popular method of making payment are payment by time, payment by result and payment by piece. Time rate is a rate of pay based on the amount of time that the employee spends at work. According to this method, the compensation is determined on the basis of time worked, that is hours, days, weeks, months, years, etc. Output of the employees is not considered while determining compensation of employees during this time. Wages are equivalent to time spent by the worker multiplied by rate of wage according to time. In the payment by results approach, compensation management that integrates strategy, people, resource and measurement to improve decision making, transparency and accountability. The main focus of this approach is on achieving outcomes, implementing performance measurement, learning, changing and reporting performance. The third method is payment by piece rate. Under this method, compensation is paid to employees on the basis of output produced by them during a fixed period of time. The compensation is calculated as equivalent to unit of output multiplied by rate per unit. This system is best suited when work is standardized, measurable and quantifiable. Compensation survey. A salary survey is a procedure used to evaluate the worth of jobs in the marketplace. There are various types of compensation survey. Informal survey. Informal survey are conducted in a formal and friendly manner by using personal contacts with other comparable organizations or exchanging mutual information on issues related to compensation. External survey. Under this method of compensation survey are conducted by external survey agencies or individuals. External surveys are mostly conducted by professional associations for the benefits of their members. Methods of compensation of external survey. Job title method. Under this method, organizations which conduct external compensation survey collects information about level structure and system of compensation from other organizations on the basis of job title. Job description method. Under this method, information about level, structure and system of compensation is collected on the basis of job description. Job evaluation method. This method is better version of job description method. Selected jobs are evaluated with the same techniques used by the other organizations. Process of compensation surveys. The first step is selection of the job to be evaluated. Collection and evaluation of information on all jobs can vary, very costly, time consuming and difficult. Therefore, organizations collect information on some representative jobs from which it will be possible to draw the compensation curve. The representative jobs are also known as benchmark jobs or key jobs. Defining the relevant markets. Products and service markets should also be considered because multiple markets may exist for organization in which organization compete for labor. Separate analysis of organization's compensation will be needed if organization shift to skill or competency from structures. Selection of the organizations to be surveyed. Organizations selected for conducting compensation survey needs to be comparable in terms of geographical location, size, ownership, philosophy and competitive priority. Determination of information to be collected. Careful planning needs to be done before collecting data from the field because the information so collected through surveys is the basis for comparison. Information is generally collected through well-designed and pre-tested questionnaires. Staff which collects the data should be well trained in advance. Normally, the following information is collected through a compensation survey: general information, interview, conference, administration of survey. Measures of effectiveness of compensation system. There are broadly three measures that are transparency, fairness, controllability. Various components of compensation are fixed compensation that include base pay, dearness allowance, house rent allowance, competency-based pay, fixed period employment contracts and fringe benefits. Second component is variable compensation. It includes long-term incentives, share schemes, short-term incentives, organization-wide incentives. Broad banding. Under this compensation technique, different compensation categories are reduced to broad compensation bands. It involves changes in classification, compensation and performance appraisal methods. Under branding procedure, jobs having similar characteristics are grouped together. Some of the characteristics used to group jobs are exempt versus non-exempt, professional versus non-professional, technical versus non-technical. Then these groups are given ranks and each group is then placed in a compensation band. To summarize the discussion, compensation design, in order to retain the talent within the organization, the employees have to pay competitively and also equitably. The perception of the management about ignorance of each other's compensation plan is perhaps always wrong. If the employee is certain about the pay differences, dissatisfaction as well as turnover both will increase. So, the compensation management system has to be designed intelligently and judiciously. Generally, 7 things are suggested related to equitable pay fit: compensation strategy, well-defined job description, formal pay structures, proper evaluation, regular surveys, creation of new positions at irregular intervals, and handsome incentive plans. An effective compensation system has to be positively transparent, fair, and controlled. Happy learning!